We just returned from 5 nights aboard a brand new luxury yacht, and I'm going to tell you all about it. Hey cruisers, welcome back to Cruise Report Cruise Review. Today we just returned a couple of days ago from a 5-night cruise aboard the Emerald Kaia. Emerald Cruises is part of a group called the Scenic Group, and there's Scenic Cruises, there's Emerald Cruises, and to be very honest with you, before we went on this trip, I knew very little about these companies. This was our 153rd cruise, and it was our first time cruising with Emerald Cruises. We still have not cruised aboard Scenic Cruises, but they are sister companies. There are some differences between the two companies. I'd heard of Emerald Cruises, but I'd always thought of it as river cruises. Same with Scenic. I knew they had river cruises. I didn't know they had ocean-going vessels like yachts. Just to give you a little bit of background on how this all came about, we were on a different cruise line maybe a year ago, not quite a year ago, and we were hosted by a lady that we met on board that ship. She was a PR representative for that company, and we became good friends. And during the year, she left that job and went to work for Scenic and Emerald. She is now their PR manager. And she invited us as media journalists to come aboard this brand new yacht that their company has just released. And that's how we ended up on this ship. So it was a hosted cruise. There were maybe 4 or 5 other media journalists on board. This was the inaugural sailing. For full transparency, we did not pay for this cruise. The cruise line invited us as guests, as part of the media, to report on this new ship and let you know about it. They obviously feel like our audience is a good demographic for their product. We, on this channel, talk about cruises for adults who travel as a couple. We're not into family cruises because we don't cruise as a family. It's just Ricky and I. In this review and in this video, we're going to answer that question. Is this Emerald Kaia yacht a good choice for adult couples? So there's a lot of growth in this small ship luxury yacht segment. We're seeing a lot of new companies that are jumping into this segment. And the question is, why are they doing this? Obviously, there's a market for it. Smaller ships are becoming more popular, especially with people like ourselves who are maybe retired or their kids have grown and moved away. They're not traveling with their kids. They want to get away. They want a luxury experience. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this luxury experience as we go through this review. Now, I already mentioned this was the inaugural sailing of the Emerald Kaia. This yacht only holds 128 guests, so it is a small ship. Now, the first thing you notice about the Emerald Kaia is it is a striking design. I mean, when we pulled up to the port in Kusadasi, it looks like some tech mogul billionaire like Elon Musk type. It looks like their private yacht. I mean, this thing, it looks very cool from the outside. It's quite an experience when you're boarding something like this, because when you get off this ship in a port, I think a lot of people are looking at you wondering, who are these people? It's like you're a big deal, okay? It's a pretty cool feeling, and it's very impressive. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to talk about the different experiences on board Emerald Kaia, and I'm going to rate each one on a scale of 1 to 10. And these are my opinions. They're not necessary, they're subjective in many cases, so take it with a grain of salt. And by the way, if any of you out there have sailed on an Emerald yacht, please put it in the comments down below. Let me know what your experience was. What do you disagree with that I'm saying? What do you agree with? First of all, let me talk about embarkation. We flew into Izmir, Turkey, and then we took a transfer from Izmir down to Kusadasi. I call it Kusadasi. Some people call it Kusadasi. You tell me how you like to pronounce it, but I call it Kusadasi. Basically, we took a transfer there, and that's where we boarded the vessel, was in Kusadasi, Turkey. Embarkation, very smooth, very simple, very easy, and it really couldn't be simpler. You walk on board this ship, and you basically step right into the reception area. First thing you know, of course, it has that new ship smell. You know, it's fresh, it's new, there's nothing quite like going on a brand new ship, but I'm sure Emerald keeps these ships very well maintained, so you're probably going to get that feeling no matter when you go on Emerald Kaia. You basically step into the reception area, and that's where they take your passport, you fill out a health questionnaire, they give you your stateroom key, and that's it. It was very simple. I'm going to rate embarkation on Emerald Kaia a 10 out of 10. It couldn't have been any easier or any faster or any more efficient. Also, the stateroom was ready when we got on board the ship. I think we got on board the ship around noon, maybe 12 to 12:30. They did inform us they were serving lunch back in the buffet in the ship's restaurant. And so we were able to go directly to our stateroom. We did not have to wait. Sometimes you have to sit in a lounge and wait for an hour or two, or go have lunch and then wait for an hour or two. Our stateroom was ready right off the bat. The luggage was there before we got to the stateroom. So we had dropped our luggage at the gangway, right at the bottom of the gangway, and by the time we checked in and got our room key, they had already started bringing our luggage to the room. So embarkation couldn't have been better. 10 out of 10. So let's talk about the ship's design. Now, I'm going to rate this an 8 out of 10, and I'll tell you why. First of all, it is super cool looking. It is the sleekest looking vessel that we have ever sailed on. Now, we've sailed on a lot of small ships and a lot of yachts, but this has to be the nicest looking one from the outside. I mean, it's amazing, and it's nice on the inside too. Very contemporary decor, maybe even to the point of being slightly sterile. There's not a lot of artwork on the ship. It's mostly gray tones, but I like that. I like the lighter tones, the gray tones. Very, like I say, very contemporary feel. Chrome rather than that brass. I'm not a big fan of the brass look, but they do have this chrome. Very, very, like I say, a very modern contemporary look, like you would expect in someone's private yacht. Very, very nice. There are 2 elevators. One of the elevators on our cruise was out of service. I'm not sure if that's because it's a brand new ship and maybe a part didn't come in, or maybe when it left the shipyard, the elevator wasn't working. I'm not really sure what the reason for that is, but it didn't matter because we never had any trouble getting an elevator. One of the best things about a small ship is you never have to stand in line. You never have to, it doesn't take you a long time to get from any deck to any other deck. There is a main staircase right next to the elevators that goes all the way from the bottom deck all the way to the top deck. So you can get anywhere on this ship pretty quick. They only have, I think, 7 decks, and we were on deck 4, so we were kind of right in the middle. And I would recommend deck 4. I think it's a great location, but I don't think there's probably a bad location on this ship. Another feature I really loved about this ship was the observation lounge. It's on deck 4 forward. What I loved about it is it's basically open 24 hours a day. I could go in there and work at 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm a very early riser, and I like to work on my computer early in the morning. I don't want to bother Ricky, so I'll go look on a ship. I'm always looking for a place to do some work early in the morning. Observation lounge was perfect for this. Very comfortable, nice big table where I could sit, put my computer, panoramic views of the ocean when the sun comes up. But what I love about it most was it had a coffee machine. It had one of those automated coffee machines, so 24 hours a day you can get coffee or tea, and they always have a little thing of cookies in there as well, which I don't eat, but they're there and they're very good. So I can go in there at 5 o'clock in the morning and get a cup of coffee. Very important, the coffee was very good. A lot of times the coffee out of these coffee machines is terrible. This coffee machine, they had good beans, good coffee beans, good flavor. Really, really like Observation Lounge. Now, when it comes to the outdoor areas of the ship, the open deck space, there is a lot of open deck space on the ship. This is what I think they refer to, and I would refer to, as a warm weather ship. This is a ship that you want to go on in a warm destination. There's a lot of outdoor seating. There's a lot of outdoor lounge areas. There's several different hot tubs, and the hot tubs are probably the most sophisticated and the nicest that I've ever seen on any vessel. Lots of padded cushions. All of the loungers have pads and cushions on them. They're not the cheap loungers that are plastic. These are really a lot of quality and workmanship has gone into all of the furnishings on the outdoor areas of this ship. So you're not going to have any trouble, I don't think, finding a place. If you like to spend time in the sun, you're going to find plenty of spaces on this ship. Also, there was a lot of covered deck space and little cabanas, so that if you like to be outside, and you're like me, you don't want to be in the direct sun, because I have skin issues. I like to kind of stay in the shade. Plenty of spaces on board this ship where you can do that as well. Now, on our cruise, it was pretty cool outside. It was in the 50s and 60s, maybe even down into the 40s. So not a lot of people were using the outer decks at all. Also, the lounge indoors, there's two lounges. There's a sky bar on deck 7, which has an interior bar lounge. And then there's the main lounge on deck 3. And both of these lounges have very comfortable seating. They were never crowded. That was one of the greatest features of the ship. And it was, we had quite a few passengers on this ship. It wasn't just our group. There were paying passengers on board the ship. And there was always plenty of seating. And the seating, a lot of you ask about this, about the comfort of the seats. And we found the seating to be very comfortable. So you might be wondering, if it's so great, how come I'm only giving it 8 out of 10? Well, one reason is there's a lack of artwork. I think it just, the ship would benefit from a little more color throughout the ship. It's a little bit monochromatic. And so I kind of deducted a point for that. The other thing is there are parts of the ship where it looks like there has been more attention to form over function. The best example I can give you, and this is just my personal observation, and that is like the handrails on the stairway are a rectangular chrome, and they're just not as easy to grip with your hands. They look amazing. They're really contemporary, very cool looking. There are parts like that it seems like more attention was paid to the form and how it looked as to how it functioned. So let's talk about the accommodations. Now, we were in a standard balcony stateroom on deck 4. We were in number 404, kind of near the front of the ship. Great location, I felt like. And they rate this at 330 square feet. I took my digital tape measure with me, and I was only able to measure 305 square feet. Maybe there was a 15 or 20 square feet I just missed somewhere. But basically, I think the balcony was about 50 square feet, and the rest, of course, was the stateroom. Doesn't matter, because it was really a comfortable stateroom. It was large. It was spacious. Now, we liked the bed, or I did. I liked the bed. I thought there was a good choice of pillows. and everything in the stateroom worked the way you would expect it to. Now the HVAC, the air conditioning system, the thermostat was a little bit tricky. Very difficult to figure out how to get it to work. Once you figured it out, it did work, but it was very high tech. Again, form over function. It probably would have been better just to have a really simple thermostat. This one is very high tech, very technological, and looked super cool. But I know that we struggled to figure it out, and I think some of the other people in our group may have struggled with it too. Now the balcony was rather small, but this is a small ship. This is a yacht. It's not a big cruise ship. It was wide enough, or deep enough, I should say, between the sliding glass door and the rail, where they fit a very nice sized table outside with 2 chairs. So you could very easily have room service breakfast out on that balcony. It was good for stepping out, taking pictures. Like I said, it was kind of cold and windy and maybe even a little rainy on our trip, so we didn't get a chance to use the balcony that much. It was a very wide balcony. It's the full width of your stateroom, but it just wasn't very deep. Now, the stateroom itself, like the rest of the ship, very contemporary, almost monochromatic. The only color in the stateroom was this little chair that they had with an ottoman that was in kind of looked almost like a tropical color fabric. And that did add a splash of color, but there are no paintings on the walls. There was no artwork per se. One big thing that I loved about this stateroom, Emerald did it right when it came to power plugs. There are power outlets everywhere in this stateroom. There's a power outlet on the desk, as well as 2 USB ports, a USB-A and a USB-C. And these power ports are universal. You don't have to bring adapters with you. No matter what type of plug you have, it will work with these AC ports. I've never seen that on any other cruise ship, and I don't know why every cruise ship doesn't do this. There were power ports by the bed, so on each side of the bed. So if you travel with a CPAP machine, you're in luck, because there's power everywhere. There are USB ports on each side of the bed, both USB-A and USB-C. It is the best design I have ever seen when it comes to the subject of AC power or USB power. The desk is huge. It's a large desk area. Stateroom had plenty of storage, more storage than we needed. Of course, we were only on for 5 nights. You could easily go on a 14-night cruise or longer on this yacht in this stateroom and never have a problem with storage. They also did a very good job in this stateroom with lighting. There's all kinds of LED lights everywhere. The room can be very bright if you want it to be. There is a light over the desk. You can turn on or off any lights in the stateroom from the bed. Now, if you want to see a complete walkthrough of this stateroom, I'll put a link up here in the corner of this video where I go through and walk through and show you what the stateroom looked like as we had lived in it for a few days, so you can see where we put all our stuff and how everything works in an actual situation. So in spite of the little nitpicky things, I'm still going to give this stateroom a 9 out of 10. I think it's one of the nicest staterooms we've ever stayed in on any ship. 153 cruises, so that's saying something. I really do believe it's one of the best designed. Just the power outlets alone make it really a great design for this stateroom. So let's talk about the bars and lounges and the bar service. I'm rating this 8 out of 10, which is a very high rating. First of all, the lounge, which is on deck 3. I already talked about the very comfortable seating, very nice decor, great selection of spirits, beer and wine. All of this, by the way, is included in the cost of your cruise, so you're not having to sign tickets. If you want to drink in the afternoon, you don't have to worry about that. They also have wine with dinner, but we never felt crowded in either of the lounges. Now, the only thing I would deduct a point for is that we never had a waiter come over to take a drink order. We did have waiters deliver our drinks, but we did have to go up to the bar and place an order, and then they would bring it to us. Not a huge deal for us. We had that same experience on Swan Hellenic last year. They maybe had a couple of people working in the bar in the evening, and maybe they just didn't have enough people to go around and take people's orders. Now, I'm sure if I stopped one of the waiters and had asked him to bring me another drink, he would have done so. But other than that, the drink service was very good. The drinks they made were very good. Ricky, she always puts the lemon drop martini to the test, and she was very pleased with the quality of the drinks. Now, the other bar is the Sky Lounge up on deck 7. And on this ship, they have an indoor and an outdoor section. And on the outdoor section, there's like a hot tub up there and some seating outside. So if you want to go up at sunset, let's say, have a cocktail, watch the sunset. The only criticism I have of the Sky Bar is they weren't open during the day. So if you wanted to go, at least on our cruise, one day I went up, I think at 5 o'clock, I wanted to get a drink up in the Sky Bar, and there was nobody working that bar. So they have kind of limited hours in the Sky Bar, whereas the lounge is open pretty much all day long down on deck 3. Neither of the bars ever felt crowded. Again, very comfortable. I'm going to give bar service an 8 out of 10. So let's talk about what everybody wants to know about, and that is food and dining. And before I get into this, I always like to preface this with food is very subjective. No two people agree on everything when it comes to food. Even Ricky and I don't agree on everything. There's some things I will eat that I absolutely love, and she just thinks are either average or not that good. So take everything I say from this point forward on food and dining with a grain of salt. I rate the food and dining on Emerald Kaia a 9 out of 10. Most of the dining on board the ship is in what I call the main restaurant, which is La Cucina. This restaurant has indoor and outdoor seating. Seating is very comfortable. They have the nicest tables. If you want a table for 2, the tables are large, and they've put plenty of space between the tables. A lot of cruise lines, a lot of luxury ships, even Silver Sea, if you sit at a table for 2, those 2 top tables are that far from each other. In fact, it's almost impossible to get up and go between the tables. They're so close together. The tables are large, and they've put plenty of space between the tables, so you actually do feel like you're dining as a couple. Now, La Cucina restaurant is a buffet service at breakfast and lunch every day. Breakfast has the same menu. Lunch offerings will change every day. You'll have different variety of meats or vegetables. I found the food to be very good, much, much better than average at a buffet. And if you follow this channel, you know Ricky and I do not like buffets. If I had a criticism of this buffet, it is that you have to serve yourself. As you know, I don't like touching spoons or tongs that 20 other people have touched before me. It would be nicer if the crew would put the food on your plate, then hand you the plate. The other option would be if they would provide gloves at the buffet, where you could put on like a plastic glove before you grab the utensils to put it on your plate. I'd be fine with that. But this is not an uncommon complaint of mine with buffets. Almost every cruise line does it this way. I can only think of a handful of cruise lines where the crew serves you. Other than that, though, buffet service was very good. At breakfast, they also have a menu where you can order items made to order. The eggs I ordered were cooked perfectly. I also ordered the corned beef hash, which was very good, very different than any I've ever had. And I also have a little video on my experience at breakfast. I'll put a link to that up in the corner if you want to watch it. I test all these different parts of the breakfast. I would say they have the best bacon I've ever eaten on a ship, and they have the best sausages I've ever seen. They give you a variety of sausages every morning. Every one I tried was good. I think personally this was the best breakfast I've ever had on a cruise ship. They also offer lamb chops at breakfast. They used to do that on Silver Sea and they stopped doing it. They also used to do it on Regent, and I believe they've stopped doing it too. So you can order a minute steak at breakfast, or you can order lamb chops at breakfast. And I did that and they were excellent. And another thing about this buffet, not just the food was good, the presentation was the nicest presentation I've ever seen on a buffet. Now, it's not the largest buffet we've ever seen on a cruise ship. Don't get me wrong. This is a yacht, 128 guests, but they had a good selection and the presentation was really well done. Very impressive. Good job. Emerald Kaia, La Cucina restaurant. Also, they do offer a red and a white wine with lunch. You can, of course, order a beer or anything else you need, and they do come around and take your order. Now, there are a couple of other options for dining. Of course, they do have room service, which is complimentary, and they have a pretty nice room service menu as well. But they also have what they call the Aqua Cafe, which is up on deck 6, and that is right out by the pool. So if you want to dine poolside, and it's basically like a pool grill. Now, they do have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but again, it was so cold on our cruise, we didn't really want to sit outside and eat in the cold. One day we did have lunch up there because I had to do my cheeseburger test. I had to test out the cheeseburger, and they do make the cheeseburger to order, and they have several different varieties of cheeseburger. I got the one that had, I think it was like a truffle mayonnaise on it. It was very good. It passed the cheeseburger test. I would say it's in probably the top 3 or 4 cheeseburgers that I've had on any cruise. The French fries were made fresh to order, and they were very good. I wish they had onion rings. If they had onion rings, it would be perfect. But they didn't, but that's okay. Maybe in the future they'll add that to their menu based on this review. The cheeseburger was good. Now, the other option for dining is a specialty restaurant, which you do have to pay extra for, and that is called Night Market. Night Market's a very small venue. I think it only holds about 8 guests. And it is kind of an open kitchen where you can watch the chef prepare, and it's a set menu with a theme, and the theme changes every couple of days. So you might have an Indian night, you might have an Asian night, or a Mediterranean or Middle Eastern night. So these themes will change throughout the cruise. And I believe it's about $75 per person to dine in the Night Market. We were invited by our host to dine there one evening with our media group, and it was very good, very interesting. I think it was an 8-course meal and very unique dishes. We were there on an Asian night. We thought it was very nice, very well done, very well executed, and I think it's something that you have to do at least once on any Emerald yacht cruise. Now, the food in La Cucina in the evenings is menu service. It's not a buffet in the evenings. So you get a different menu each night. I found everything to be very good. There were a couple of things I thought were standout items that were excellent. So I'm giving the dining on Emerald Kaia, food and dining, 9 out of 10. So what about the crew and the staff, and what about the service levels? Well, first of all, everybody we came in contact with, extremely friendly. Just the service levels were over the top. And that's what you can expect usually on a smaller ship or a yacht experience. You're going to have a much more personal relationship with the crew than you would on a large ship. I believe they have almost a 1-to-1 guest or crew to guest ratio on board these yachts. So you get a lot more personal service than you would get on a big cruise ship. Ricky wanted to buy a t-shirt, a logo t-shirt. We went to the boutique. Coco found the shirts for her and even sent a couple of shirts up to our stateroom for Ricky to try on before she bought them to make sure that they fit her properly. You're never going to get service like that on a big cruise ship. I'm giving the crew and the service a solid 10 out of 10. I can't imagine it being any better. Now, we only did one excursion. We had signed up for 2 excursions. There are included excursions in every port. And we were supposed to do the included excursion in Istanbul, a very generous excursion, which went to the Blue Mosque, Hagia Sophia, and I believe the Grand Bazaar. But the weather was so bad, it was so rainy and windy, and cold. We just decided that'd be a good day to stay on the ship and get our video and photos of the ship and just do that. Kind of regret now that we didn't go, but we have seen those places before. We did do one excursion that you do have to pay for, and that was in the city of Troy. I think it was also 4 or 5 hours long. I think it was only like $115 per person, which I thought was quite a good value for that long of an excursion. And it was one of the best executed excursions we've ever been on. The local guide was amazing. I mean, he knew everything there was to know about the city of Troy. So if you're interested in destinations and destination immersion, I think Emerald is going to be a very good choice for you. So we're giving the excursions a 9 out of 10. So what about entertainment and activities? This is a small ship. It's a yacht. You don't get entertainment on a yacht or a small ship like you do on a large cruise ship. I almost don't think it's fair to even give entertainment a rating. I'm not even going to include it and rate it. There were entertainers. There were 2 gentlemen that would play guitar and sing in the lounge in the evening and or up in the sky bar. So there was some entertainment. There was a few activities. They had some trivia in the afternoon, but nothing like what you would get on a large cruise ship. There's not going to be any production shows. There's no singers and dancers or anything like that. There is one other experience that we enjoyed while on board Emerald Kaia, and I failed to include this in my overall rating, but it would get a 10 out of 10, and that was our visit to the Elements Spa. The yacht does have a very nice, fully equipped spa. It has a sauna, it has a cold plunge, an aromatherapy room, but they also offer a variety of massage treatments, facials, everything you would expect on any size ship they offer in the Element Spa. They also have a full beauty salon, so if you need any hair or nail treatments, all of this is offered. Now, it is at an additional cost, but we found the price for the massage treatments to be very, very competitive with other cruise lines. So if we add up all of my ratings from all these different areas, it comes out to 63 out of 70. That's a very high score. This was one of the most enjoyable small ship experiences that we've ever had. And we've had a lot of them over the years. I would not hesitate not only to go back on an Emerald Yacht Cruise, but I would have no reservation recommending an Emerald Yacht Cruise to anybody in our audience. I think it's one of the best choices you could make for a small ship cruise, especially if you're an adults traveling as a couple or a single. Just an amazing experience. We were very, very impressed. All of your gratuities are included on an Emerald yacht. All of your beer, wine, sodas, cocktails, all of that's included. So it is a good value. If you're a family, I think you should look for something else. There's not going to be anything on these ships for kids to do. I don't think it's really going to be a good choice for a family. But if you're a couple, this is perfect. The other thing this yacht is going to be excellent for is charters. If you work for a company or you have an organization that is looking to charter a luxury yacht, Emerald Cruises does a lot of charter business. This is going to be an excellent option for that because they really know how to tailor an experience to your charter group. So I think that's going to be very popular with the charter community. So anyway, let me know in the comments what you think of this review. If you have any questions, please put it in the comment section. If you enjoyed this video, do me a favor and give it a thumbs up. I really do appreciate it. Please share this video with your friends. Again, put your questions in down below. Thanks again for joining me. Give it a thumbs up. And until our next cruise review, and don't forget to check out my walkthrough video coming up right after this. Thanks for joining me. And until I see you on the next cruise review, smooth sailing.